Have you ever felt invisible in a place that claims to be your home, a place that shares your language, your religion, your heritage, but not your skin tone? Before we begin, comment below and tell us which hidden stories you want to hear next, which voice you think needs to be heard louder. Your voice helps lift theirs. This is Equal Voices Hub. And today, we're breaking the silence around one of the Arab world's most uncomfortable truths, the racism faced by Black Arabs. Because, despite centuries of shared history, despite being woven into the social and cultural fabric of the Middle East and North Africa, millions of Black Arabs live as if behind a curtain seen, but not truly acknowledged. They are your taxi driver in Mauritania, the domestic worker in Saudi Arabia, the musician in Sudan, the laborer in Jordan, the proud descendant of centuries-old tribes in Iraq or Yemen, but rarely the CEO, rarely the minister, rarely the face on the billboard. Why? Why are they so rarely part of the stories the Arab world tells about itself? And how do they survive? Not with bitterness, but with hope. Let's explore. To understand racism in the Arab world, we have to go back, not decades, but centuries. Long before the transatlantic slave trade, the Arab slave trade operated for over 1,300 years, moving millions of Africans across North Africa, the Gulf, and the Levant. While it didn't always resemble the chattel slavery practiced by Europeans, it was no less brutal, no less dehumanizing. As legacy lingers in haunting ways. Blackness, once associated with strength, music, spirituality, and royalty in pre-Islamic Africa, became, in many Arab contexts, associated with servitude. Words like abid, literally meaning slave, are still casually used to refer to black people in some Arab dialects. Many don't even realize how deeply offensive that is. It's just the word, they say. But language reveals the wound. From Sudan to Saudi Arabia, from Iraq to Mauritania, Black Arabs have inherited not just skin color, but a social status that remains rigid, often tied to ancestral slavery, even if their families have been free for generations. It's not just racism, it's a kind of caste system. In Mauritania, the Haratin, a Black Arab ethnic group, make up nearly 40% of the population. Many descend from slaves who were only recently emancipated in 1981. Yes, you heard that right. Slavery was officially outlawed in Mauritania just over 40 years ago and only criminalized in 2007. But in practice, it still exists, especially in rural areas. Haratin children are often denied education. Women are exploited in domestic work. Families who dare challenge the status quo are ostracized or threatened. And yet, they endure. They resist. Haratin activists are fighting not just for freedom but for visibility, for acknowledgement. Because silence is not neutrality, it's complicity. Move eastward, and the shadows of discrimination follow. In Saudi Arabia, Black Saudis often face systemic exclusion. While they share the same passport and pray in the same mosques, they are rarely allowed into elite social circles. In media, you almost never see a dark-skinned face on television unless it's playing a servant or a comic relief. In schools, darker children are mocked, their hair called wool, their skin called burnt. These are not rare exceptions. They are everyday occurrences. And for non-citizen Black Africans, especially domestic workers from countries like Ethiopia, Sudan, Kenya, the situation is even more precarious. Stories of abuse, unpaid wages, and even deaths under the kafala system, a sponsorship program that ties workers' legal status to their employers, have become tragically common. Some are locked in homes, some are beaten, some are trafficked, and because they're not citizens, because they're black, because they're poor, they are invisible. But even here, hope glimmers. Movements like Abolish Kafala are growing. More and more Gulf youth are questioning the racism in their own societies. More young Saudis, Kuwaitis, and Emiratis are saying enough. They are listening. Then there is Sudan, a country at the very crossroads of Arab and African identity. Here, colorism is woven into every layer of society. Though many Sudanese identify as both Arab and African, lighter skin is still viewed as more desirable, more civilized, more modern. Brides bleach their skin before weddings. Ads show lighter-skinned families, and darker tribes, especially in Darfur or South Kordofan, are often marginalized. During the Darfur conflict, the Sudanese government was accused of arming Arab militias to carry out ethnic cleansing against Black African tribes, a brutal reminder that even shared religion and nationality could not override racial hierarchies. And yet, Sudan's 2019 revolution brought together Arabs and Africans, Muslims and Christians, men and women united in the streets demanding dignity. For once, it wasn't just about class or corruption, it was about a shared humanity. That's the power of collective hope, the power of unity in the face of a system built to divide. What about Iraq? In the southern city of Basra, over 1.5 million Black Iraqis live, descendants of East African slaves brought by the Abbasid Caliphate centuries ago. They've lived in Iraq for generations. They are Iraqi in every sense, but they remain politically and socially marginalized. Many are unemployed. Few are elected. They report widespread use of racial slurs, even from fellow Muslims at the mosque. They've campaigned for recognition as a distinct ethnic minority, asking for representation. protections, and dignity. In 2008, they held Iraq's first Black cultural festival, a small act but a powerful one, because claiming your identity in a world that wants to erase it is radical, and it gives others the courage to do the same across the Arab world. This story repeats. In Yemen, the Muhamasheen, literally the marginalized ones, are an oppressed underclass. Most are black. They live in segregated neighborhoods, denied access to public schools and hospitals. Many can't vote. Some can't even get identity papers. They're called Akdam servants, a name but also a sentence. Even during Yemen's civil war, their suffering is ignored, bombed, starved, displaced, and yet rarely spoken of. But the youth among them are using smartphones, social media, and poetry to speak out. They are documenting their reality. They are refusing to be erased. That is survival. That is hope. Let's talk about language again, because even in casual conversation, the racism runs deep. In many Arab dialects, asmadak is often said with pity. Abd slave is used as a casual descriptor. Blackness is equated with ugliness, with filth, with backwardness. People bleach their skin, straighten their hair, choose lighter partners not because they want to erase themselves, but because they've been taught that their natural self is not good enough. This is the pain of internalized racism. But some are reclaiming their roots. They are saying, my skin is not a curse, my curls are not a problem, my history is not shameful. From Sudanese influencers to Mauritanian poets, from Iraqi singers to Yemeni photographers, Black Arabs are taking back the narrative. They are saying, I exist, I matter, I belong. You might be wondering, how do they survive? How do they carry so much pain and yet still hold on to joy? It's because they believe somehow, still, that things can change, because they've seen what change looks like. In revolutions, in protests, in small acts of kindness. In the first time someone says, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I'll do better. They survive by remembering that dignity is not given, it is claimed. By remembering that silence is violence, but speaking truth is power. By holding on to stories, to ancestors who endured worse and still sang. By teaching their children not to hate, but to rise. And by daring to dream that one day, they will not have to explain their humanity. It will simply be recognized. This video is not about blaming one culture or country. It's about holding a mirror to systems that thrive in the shadows. It's about listening to the stories that don't make headlines. It's about giving voice to those who have been ignored, not for lack of strength, but because the world refused to hear them. But now we hear them, because this is Equal Voices Hub and every voice deserves to be heard. If this story moved you, if it challenged you, if it opened your eyes, share it. And don't forget to comment below with the next community or story you want us to explore together. We can shine light into every silence, because silence never changed the world, but truth spoken boldly can.